I never believed in love at first sight, not until I met Carter Matthews on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in September. The coffee shop was packed that day, every table occupied by students escaping the downpour that had turned our college campus into a series of rivers and puddles. I was drenched, my backpack dripping onto the worn wooden floor when I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, you can share my table if you want, I'm about to leave anyway." I turned around and there he was. 6 feet tall, sandy blonde hair pushed back from his face, green eyes that seemed to hold entire forests in them. He wore a simple gray hoodie and jeans but somehow made it look effortless. My breath caught in my throat. "Thanks," I managed to say, trying not to stare. "I'm Alex." "Carter," he smiled, and I swear the entire room got brighter. "Actually, you know what? I'm not in a rush, mind if I stay for a bit." That's how it started. One conversation about the weather turned into a discussion about our majors. He was studying architecture, I was in creative writing. We talked about our favorite books, our dreams, our fears. 2 hours passed like minutes. What I didn't know then was that Carter had a girlfriend. What I didn't know was that he had spent his entire life convinced he was straight, living the life everyone expected of him. What I didn't know was that I was about to turn both our worlds completely upside down. Over the next few months, Carter and I became inseparable. We studied together at the library, grabbed lunch between classes, and spent late nights talking about everything and nothing. He told me about Madison, his girlfriend of 2 years. She was pre-med, beautiful, ambitious, everything you'd expect from someone dating the golden boy of our campus. I told myself it was just friendship. I ignored the way my heart raced when he texted me. I pretended not to notice how his touch lingered when we high-fived or how he always chose to sit just a little too close. I buried the feelings deep down because Carter was straight and I wasn't about to be that guy who fell for his straight best friend. But feelings don't listen to logic. One Friday night in November, Carter invited me to a party at his fraternity house. I almost said no. Watching him with Madison was becoming harder and harder, but he insisted. "Come on, man, you're my best friend, it won't be the same without you there." Best friend, those words should have made me happy. Instead, they felt like a knife to the chest. The party was everything you'd expect: loud music, too many people, the smell of cheap beer and cheaper cologne. I found a corner and nursed a drink, watching Carter work the room. He was magnetic, drawing people to him like moths to a flame. Madison hung on his arm, perfect and polished, and I felt like an idiot for even hopping. Then Carter looked across the room and caught my eye. His smile faltered for just a second, something flickering across his face that I couldn't read. He whispered something to Madison and made his way over to me. "You okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Yeah, just not really my scene," I said, trying to sound casual. "Want to get out of here?" I blinked. "What about Madison?" "She's having fun, come on, let's go for a drive." 20 minutes later, we were parked at the overlook above the city, the lights twinkling below us like earthbound stars. Carter's truck smelled like pine air freshener and the faint scent of his cologne. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind you can only have with someone you truly connect with. "Can I ask you something?" Carter said finally, his voice quiet. "Sure." "When did you know that you were gay?" The question caught me off guard. We'd never really talked about my sexuality directly, though I'd never hidden it either. "I don't know if there was one moment," I said carefully. "It was more like gradually realizing that what I felt for guys was what everyone else seemed to feel for the opposite sex." "Why do you ask?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the lights. "I've been thinking a lot lately about things, about feelings I don't really understand." My heart started pounding. "What kind of feelings?" "I don't know, that's the problem." He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "I love Madison, I do, but lately I've been confused about us, about our friendship, about why being with you feels different than being with anyone else." I couldn't breathe. This was dangerous territory and I knew it. "Carter." "Forget it," he said quickly. "I'm probably just drunk, we should head back." But I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't drunk, he was scared. After that night, things changed. Carter started pulling away, canceling our study sessions, responding to texts hours later instead of immediately. I told myself it was for the best, that distance was what we both needed, but it hurt more than I wanted to admit. Then 2 weeks before Christmas break, he showed up at my dorm room at midnight. "We need to talk," he said, and I could see the fear and determination warring in his expression. I let him in. He paced my small room like a caged animal while I sat on my bed, waiting. "I broke up with Madison," he said finally. "What, why?" "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you." The words came out in a rush. "Because every time I kissed her, I wished I was somewhere else. Because I've been lying to myself for months, maybe years, about who I am and what I want." He stopped packing and looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw everything he was feeling written across his face. "I think I'm in love with you, Alex, and it terrifies me." Time seemed to stop. I had imagined this moment 100 times, but now that it was happening, I didn't know what to say. "You don't have to say anything," Carter continued, misreading my silence. "I just needed you to know. I needed to be honest with at least one person, and you're the only one I trust with this." "I'm in love with you too," I said softly. "I have been since the day we met." He closed the distance between us in 2 steps. His hand cupped my face, trembling slightly, and then he was kissing me. It was tentative at first, questioning, but when I kissed him back, it deepened into something desperate and real and perfect. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Carter rested his forehead against mine. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered. "Neither do I admitted, "but we'll figure it out together." If I had known then how hard it would be, would I have still said yes? I'd like to think so. Love is worth fighting for, even when the fight feels impossible. The next few months were a beautiful, terrifying secret. We couldn't tell anyone. Carter wasn't ready for that. His family was conservative, his fraternity brothers would never understand, and he was still processing everything himself. So we stole moments when we could. Late-night conversations in my dorm room, secret drives to places where no one knew us, stolen kisses in the shadows. It was heaven and hell all at once. I understood his fear, I really did. Coming out is a deeply personal journey and everyone has to do it on their own timeline, but living in the shadows was slowly breaking my heart. I wanted to hold his hand in public. I wanted to be able to call him my boyfriend. I wanted to exist in the daylight instead of just in secret moments. Carter was struggling too. I could see it in the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore, in the tension he carried in his shoulders. He was living a double life, the straight frat guy everyone expected him to be, and the person he actually was when he was with me. One night in March, everything came crashing down. We were in my room just talking when Carter's phone rang. It was his mother. I watched his face change as he listened, watched him transform from the person I knew back into the version of himself he showed the world. "Yeah, Mom, everything's fine." "No, Madison and I aren't getting back together, because I just don't feel that way about her anymore. I don't know, I'm just focusing on school right now." The lies tasted bitter even to me, and I wasn't the one speaking them. After he hung up, Carter sat on the edge of my bed, his head in his hands. "I can't do this anymore," he said. My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "This us living like this, it's killing me." "Then let's stop hiding," I said, even though I was terrified. "Come out, we can face it together." He looked at me with so much pain in his eyes that it physically hurt. "You don't understand, my parents, they'll disown me. My dad already barely speaks to me because I'm not playing football anymore. If he knew I was, that I'm..." He couldn't even say the word. "Gay," I said gently. "You're gay, Carter, or bi or queer or whatever label feels right to you, but you're not straight, and pretending you are is destroying you." "Maybe I should just go back to how things were," he said quietly. "Maybe this was all a mistake." Those words felt like a physical blow. "A mistake? Is that what I am to you?" "No, God, no, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, but maybe it would be easier if you just shoved yourself back in the closet and married some girl and spent your whole life miserable." I was angry now, hurt and angry and scared. "That's not easier, Carter, that's just slower suicide. You're asking me to choose between you and my entire family." "I'm asking you to choose yourself," I shouted back. "I'm asking you to choose being happy over being what everyone else wants you to be." We stared at each other, both breathing hard, both hurting. "I need time," Carter said finally. "I need to think." He left and I didn't try to stop him. Carter didn't call the next day or the day after that. A week went by with no word. I saw him around campus, always surrounded by his fraternity brothers, laughing and joking like nothing had changed, like I didn't exist. It was worse than any breakup I'd ever imagined because we'd never really had the chance to be together in the first place. I threw myself into my classes, into my writing, into anything that would keep me from thinking about him, but everything reminded me of Carter. The coffee shop where we met, the library where we used to study, the overlook where he first admitted he had feelings for me. My roommate, David, finally confronted me after finding me staring at my laptop without typing for the third day in a row. "All right, what's going on? You've been like a zombie for weeks." I hadn't told anyone about Carter and me, but I needed to talk to someone before I went crazy. "I fell in love with someone who's too scared to love me back," I said simply. David sat down across from me, Carter Matthews. My head snapped up. "How did you?" "Dude, you're not as subtle as you think. The way you look at him, anyone paying attention could see it. Does he feel the same way?" "He says he does, but he's not ready to come out, and I don't know if he ever will be." "That's rough, man. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Wait, I guess. Hope that he chooses, well, chooses himself, chooses us. And if he doesn't?" That was the question I'd been avoiding. What if Carter never came out? What if he decided it was easier to go back to dating girls, to living the lie? Could I watch that happen? Could I stand by and watch the person I loved slowly destroy himself? "Then I guess I move on," I said, even though the words felt like giving up, even though I don't know how. It was the first week of April when everything changed again. I was walking back from the library late one night when I heard shouting coming from behind the student center. I recognized one of the voices immediately, Carter. I rounded the corner to find him face to face with three guys from his fraternity. One of them was holding a phone, and even from a distance I could see Carter's face was pale with fear. "Is this you?" the guy with the phone demanded. "Because Jake said he saw you making out with some dude in a car last week." My stomach dropped. We'd been so careful but apparently not careful enough. "I don't know what Jake thinks he saw," Carter started, but his voice was shaking. "Don't lie to us, Matthews. Are you a fag or not?" The slur cut through the air like a knife. I saw Carter flinch, saw him shrink into himself, and something in me snapped. "Hey," I called out, walking toward them. "Back off." Four sets of eyes turned to me. Carter's widened in panic. "Alex, don't," he started, but I ignored him. "Whatever you think you saw, whatever accusation you're throwing around, it's none of your business," I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. "Oh, I get it," the guy with the phone sneered. "You're the dude. Jake said he couldn't see who it was, but I guess we found him." The other two guys stepped forward, and I realized too late that I might have just made a very dangerous situation worse. "Is it true, Carter?" the leader asked, turning back to him. "Are you fucking this guy?" I watched Carter's face, watched him standing at the crossroads of the rest of his life. He could deny it, throw me under the bus, save himself. Instead, something shifted in his expression. The fear was still there, but underneath it I saw determination, decision, courage. "Yes," Carter said, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in weeks. "Yes, I'm gay, and yes, Alex is my boyfriend, and if you have a problem with that, I honestly don't care anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. "You're disgusting," one of them spat. "You're out of the fraternity, don't even bother coming back." "Fine," Carter said, didn't want to be part of an organization full of bigots anyway. They left, throwing a few more slurs over their shoulders. When they were gone, Carter turned to me. And I saw tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry for making you wait, for being such a coward, for." I pulled him into my arms, holding him as he shook. "You're not a coward, you're the bravest person I know. I just outed myself to the biggest gossips on campus. My parents are going to find out, everyone's going to find out. I know, and I'll be right here with you through all of it." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes red but determined. "I love you. I should have said that a long time ago. I love you, and I don't want to hide anymore." "I love you too," I said, and kissed him right there in the open, not caring who might see. The next few weeks were brutal. News spread across campus like wildfire. Carter's fraternity formally expelled him. His parents found out before he could tell them himself, and the phone call with his father was everything he'd feared: yelling, accusations, ultimatums. But there were good things too. Carter's mom, after the initial shock, called him back privately. She didn't understand, she said, but she loved him and wanted to try. His architecture professor, who he'd been terrified would judge him, instead pulled him aside to share that he'd been with his husband for 30 years and offered to be a resource if Carter needed support. And slowly, Carter started to rebuild his life as his authentic self. He moved out of the fraternity house and got an apartment off campus. I spent more nights there than in my own dorm. We went on real dates, dinner, movies, walks through the park holding hands, everything I'd dreamed about and more. It wasn't perfect. Carter still struggled sometimes with internalized homophobia, with guilt, with fear. There were days when the weight of everything felt like too much, but we worked through it together. One night in May, lying in bed together, Carter traced patterns on my arm and said, "Thank you." For what? For waiting, for being patient with me, for loving me even when I was too scared to love myself. "You would have figured it out eventually," I said, "even if I hadn't been there." "Maybe, but it would have taken a lot longer and I would have been a lot more miserable." He propped himself up on one elbow to look at me. "You know what the crazy thing is? I'm happier now than I've ever been. Even with my dad not speaking to me, even with losing half my friends, even with all the stares and comments, I'm happier because I'm finally being honest." "I'm proud of you," I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. Summer came, bringing new challenges. Carter's father still refused to see him, but his mother invited both of us to dinner. It was awkward and emotional, but it was a start. She asked questions, trying to understand. She looked at old photos of Carter with Madison and asked if he'd ever really loved her. "I thought I did," Carter answered honestly. "But looking back, I think I loved the idea of her more than her as a person. I loved that being with her made sense, that it made everyone happy, that it fit the story I'd been told my whole life about who I was supposed to be." "And with Alex?" she asked. Carter took my hand under the table. "With Alex, I don't have to pretend to be anyone but myself, and that makes all the difference." We went back to school in the fall as an official couple. Carter joined the LGBTQ+ student organization and became an advocate for others going through similar struggles. He started seeing a therapist to work through everything he'd been holding in for so long. I watched him transform from the scared, closeted guy I'd met a year ago into someone confident and proud. He still had moments of doubt, we both did. Coming out isn't a one-time event, it's a continuous process of choosing authenticity over comfort. But through it all, we had each other. Epilogue 1 year later. It's been exactly 1 year since that rainy Tuesday when Carter walked into my life. We're sitting in that same coffee shop at that same table, watching rain streak down the windows. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Carter asks, stirring his coffee absently. "All the time," I admit. "You could have chosen to stay in the closet. I could have walked away when things got hard. We could have missed each other completely. But we didn't. No, we didn't." Carter reaches across the table and takes my hand, right there in public, not caring who sees. "I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad you saw something in me worth waiting for. I'm glad you finally saw it in yourself." Outside, the rain continues to fall, washing the world clean. Inside this coffee shop, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the murmur of conversation, we sit together, two people who found each other against all odds, who chose love over fear, who decided that being true to themselves was worth any price. Carter was wrong when he said he was straight. But he wasn't lying, he genuinely believed it because that's what he'd been taught to believe about himself. It took meeting the right person at the right time for him to question everything he thought he knew. Love didn't change who Carter was. It revealed who he'd always been underneath the layers of expectation and fear and denial, and in doing so, it changed everything. "I love you," he says, like it's the easiest thing in the world. "I love you too," I reply, and mean it more than ever. This is our story. It's not perfect and it's far from over, but it's ours, and that's enough.